Thank you for making time on this 23rd day of August. Ahead.
Tonight, the Deputy President hits back.
William Ruto this, William Ruto that, opinion poll this, corruption the other. Is sponsored by our competitors because they cannot match our development record.
DP Ruto rubbishes Ipsos Synovate polls as mere political tools, dares his challengers to step up.
Unaweza ambao wache siasa lakini unapigwa na siasa.
We also tell you how the Kenyan taxpayers could have lost 1.4 billion shillings in shady deals during the WTO summit hosted at KICC in 2015.
Also tonight,
the proceedings before this court be terminated, but submitted that the accused should be set free.
From one court on to the next, a frail and visibly injured Bobby Wine to spend another week in custody following a civilian court decision.
Plus, a Kisumu man dies after a hippo attack on Lake Victoria a year after surviving a crocodile attack.
NTV Tonight with Mark Masai and Gladys Gachanja.
Good evening. Flora Atieno is our sign language interpreter tonight. We're glad you could join us.
Deputy President William Ruto says he will not be distracted by what he called under-the-table political tactics by his opponents.
Ruto says the allegations against him were fake, sponsored by political lightweights out to derail his ambition.
The Deputy President spoke when he met with Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru and 33 members of the Kirinyaga County Assembly who voiced their support for the Ruto-Waiguru partnership for 2022.
NTV's Mel Miendo is still on that story.
Just a day after research firm Ipsos Synovate released findings on the state of corruption in the country, where Deputy President William Ruto and Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru were ranked as the most corrupt political leaders, the two leaders and 33 members of the Kirinyaga County Assembly met for breakfast and talks at the Deputy President's residence. The leaders taking yet another chance to rubbish Ipsos findings on graft perceptions.
Hawa mnaona wanazunguka kwa magazeti, wamejaza maneno porojo ya ufisadi kwa magazeti, wamejaza story headline kwa magazeti. Hawa watu mimi nataka niwaeleze, wakimalizana na kuandika headline na opinion poll ya bure, tukutane kwa wananchi.
Unaweza ambao wache siasa lakini unapigwa na siasa. Na ukipigwa na siasa lazima urudisha na nini? Na siasa. Kwa sababu huwezi rudisha na uteknokrasia ama tuanze kuongea maneno mengine tukisema ni siasa ni siasa.
The Ipsos polls ranked both of them highly on the graft perception scale. The Deputy President dismissed the graft talk as a paid opinion poll and fake news sponsored by political lightweights out to kill his political career.
The whole of this story about constant, perennial, unending headlines about William Ruto this, William Ruto that, opinion poll this, corruption the other, is sponsored by our competitors because they cannot match our development record.
It is not the first time that the Deputy President has addressed this subject or has had to ward off corruption allegations he has constantly denied. In an interview with NTV last month, the Deputy President spoke to this.
Friends, just the same way you told me, my friends, William Ruto has never, ever been involved in any form of corruption, either as Member of Parliament or today serving as Deputy President. And I give my pledge that I will not.
At the breakfast meeting, MCAs from Kirinyaga announced their support for possible partnership between the Deputy President and their Governor Anne Waiguru for the 2022 presidency.
Yale tuliona jana, sisi niseme hivi, ni dhahabu lazima ingie kwa mo, na hii dhahabu inaingia kwa moto imezoea si ndio? Gavana wetu hata amezoea moto. Sasa hii ni mambo kidogo.
You know the CV of our governor. It is not foreign to you. You know her maybe better than we know her. Weka yeye number 2. Alafu tutapanda na nyinyi hiyo mlima. Tutaenda na nyinyi mpaka mwisho. kiwe liwe liwalo.
Kirinyaga is one voice. Hapa kuna MCA amelazimishwa kukuja. Iko mtu amelazimishwa? Tuko kama there's one thing we are speaking in one voice, ni tuko nyuma yako. Wataleta siasa, watatuita majina. Mimi hata siitishi kiti. Mimi nataka kusimama na wewe.
Malmiendo, NTV.
Karibuni. On to another emerging story on graft. Kenyans might have lost about 1.4 billion shillings during the Ministerial World Trade Organization Summit held at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in 2015.
A new report by the Auditor General Edward Ouko says the management of the KICC committed several blunders in the award of tenders for the conference, giving way to loopholes that saw officials collude with businesses for kickbacks.
NTV's Silas Apollo reports on the latest of reports by Ouko in what seems to have become a custom in public institutions.
The award of rights to the Kenyatta International Convention Center to host the World Trade Organization Summit in 2015, the first in Africa, was a moment of pride for the country.
The meeting would add to the number of high-profile events to be held at the KICC and boost its profile as the region's premier destination for conferencing. KICC has not only played host to 1, 2, 3 or tens of dignitaries, but dozens, from heads of states, senior government officials, global business leaders, among other dignitaries. And the successes of the World Trade Organization meeting were in no doubt, with the government and businesses admitting to making earnings running into hundreds of millions of shillings. But unknown to many Kenyans, works behind the scenes were riddled with graft, mismanagement, procurement flaws and corruption, leading to losses that now run into billions of shillings. And it is not just the procurement of services that was flawed and illegal. The tendering committee that okayed the works had been illegally constituted, an illegality that the auditor says was encouraged by the board of directors. On the spot is the then managing director of the corporation, Fred Simiyu, who the Auditor General Edward Ouko singles out as one of the key beneficiaries of these misdeeds. The report says that out of the 17 projects implementing during the period, only 5 had invitation for bids to participate in the tenders, and that out of the 5, only 2 were considered by the tender committee. Available information, says Ouko, shows that the awards for the 15 tenders was done singly by the then Chief Executive Officer through single sourcing. Of these 15 tenders, KICC coughed out about 1.4 billion shillings for the period between July 13, 2015 and September 30th of the same year. Further, documentations provided for the purposes of the audit show that 6 of the tenders had been cancelled due to the delay in the release of funds, leading to losses amounting to millions of shillings. Another local company was awarded 64.9 million shillings, even though it had not been issued with an award letter for the tender. Ouko says that the corporation has so far received claims amounting to 701 million shillings from previous suppliers, but lacked documentation to prove the kind of work done and whether work was actually done. And besides the procurement mess, the KICC could also lose millions of shillings in the form of outstanding debts that are yet to be paid to the corporation. These include debts worth 697 million shillings owed by various government ministries and departments, as well as Parliament, and another 36 million shillings it was not paid for rent of offices occupied by a private secretary to the president. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Elsewhere, Embakasi North Member of Parliament James Gakuya has denied fraud charges relating to tenders for repair of roads in his constituency.
Appearing before Magistrate Felix Komba, the MP and his co-accused pleaded not guilty to the charges of mismanagement and embezzlement of 39.8 million shillings.
They were each released on a 2 million shillings cash bill or 5 million shillings bond with a surety of similar amount after the court rejected the prosecution's plea to have the accused denied bail.
The lawmaker was arrested on Wednesday by detectives from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Meanwhile, the Nairobi-based businessman charged with bribing Governor Mike Sonko with 5 million shillings will remain in custody pending his bond application ruling.
Mombasa Senior Principal Magistrate Henry Nyakweba ordered the suspect to be remanded at Port Police Station. Praful Kumar denied offering the bribe to the governor to approve the building of Grand Manor Hotel in Gigiri.
The suspect was also charged with the second and third count of offering 2 million shillings to the governor for approval of the construction of the building. The prosecution said the suspect committed the offense on August 20th at Kanamai in Kikambala, Kilifi County.
Now, one of the developers said to have grabbed land at the Kibarani dump site in Mombasa has surrendered the title deed to the National Land Commission.
General Tyres gave the documents on a parcel of land measuring 0.4991 hectares to the Commission during a public inquiry at Kenya School of Government in Mombasa earlier today.
According to records, Khalid Ahmed is listed as the owner of the land, and at least 22 people were expected at the inquiry, but only 8 turned up.
President Uhuru Kenyatta in July had ordered that title deeds be revoked. He wants the land reverted back to the county government.
The National Lands Commission says at least 30 property developers have deeds to the piece of land that abuts the Indian Ocean.
Fika na kama tume tungependa kusema kuwa watu waambiwa wafike mbele ya tume waeleze vile walipata ardhi. Kutofika haikusaidii. Kwa sababu usipofika tume itaangalia ile ripoti iko mbele yake, na kama ilikuwa sehemu ilikuwa ardhi ya umma, tume ya kitaifa ya ardhi itafanya ripoti ambayo inayofaa. Sasa ni vizuri ufike ueleze ardhi kama ulinunua au hukununua ama ulipata vipi.
Still in the courts, but on an entirely different issue, the General Court Marshal sitting in Gulu Army Barracks has dropped all charges against Chadondo East MP Robert Chagulanyi, popularly known as Bobby Wine.
The MP had been charged with illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, and he was, however, immediately rearrested and charged with treason in the Gulu Chief Magistrate's Court.
Bobby Wine's name was included on charge sheet along with those of 32 other suspects, including 3 MPs arrested days before the Arua municipality by-election on the 15th of August.
Chairman of the General Court Martial Lieutenant General Andrew Guti and his team drove into Gulu 4th Division Army Barracks at around 9:30 a.m. Earlier, lawyers, relatives and friends of Chadondo East MP Robert Chagulanyi, popularly known as Bobby Wine, who are led by his wife Barbara Chagulanyi, camped at the barracks gate awaiting hearing by the Army Court. The court session began at about 10 a.m. Bobby Wine, who appeared to be in pain, sat quietly in a plastic chair. The court-martial lead prosecutor, Major Raphael Mugisha, told court that the army had withdrawn the charges of illegal possession of firearms and ammunition against the legislator.
Procedures in this court be terminated, and
the court is not an instrument of arresting for the police.
Court-martial chairman Lieutenant General Guti then adjourned for 10 minutes to enable the court give its verdict.
Time for photographs are there. You will be with him.
There was an interesting twist during the break when the presidential convoy was seen exiting the barracks where the court-martial sat. After the break, which lasted more than 10 minutes, Lieutenant General Guti agreed with prosecution and freed Bobby Wine. He said it was unfair trying the MP in the Army Court on charges similar to those his colleagues were facing in Gulu Magistrates Court.
It is fair and equitable that the accused person be tried in civil court, where he is to be charged with other suspects who are not before this court. Court adjourns up to next week.
As expected, as soon as he got out of the court-martial, police led by Director of CID Grace Akulo rearrested Bobby Wine and drove him about 2 kilometers away to the Gulu Chief Magistrate's Court, where he was charged with treason.
The charge you are charged with is capital in nature, and this court has no jurisdiction to try it.
Court then remanded Bobby Wine to Gulu Central Prison until 30th August, when he will appear with other suspects for mention of their cases. Ali Mivule, NTV.
Back home, human rights activists have faulted the East African leadership over their silence in the face of human rights abuses in Uganda.
The activists who held protests in Nairobi after Uganda MP Robert Chagulanyi was rearrested in Gulu are calling for Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni's resignation to allow for the democratic space in the Pearl of Africa to thrive.
NTV's Leila Mohammed covered the protest for us and has that story.
On Twitter, the hashtag Free Bobi Wine was a trending topic in Kenya for the 4th day this week. Many expressing concern about the fate of Chedondo East MP Robert Chagulanyi. Off social media, many more gathered at Nairobi's historic Freedom Corner for a march through the capital. Those marching today believe that it was a march for a free and democratic Uganda.
Uganda is militarized. The people of Uganda are brutalized. There is state terror in Uganda.
For a moment, there were loud cheers after news filtered through that the MP had been released after the military court dropped all charges against him. But moments later, their spirits were dampened by the news of his rearrest and new charges of treason facing him in a civilian court.
I want to tell Museveni just to release Bobi Wine. He's a parent. We want to demand his release. We want to remand. No, even if he's released, let him release the Ugandans.
So basically what they're saying is that the vision of Robert Chagulanyi, aka Bobi Wine, just represents a number of African youth who are below the age of 35 and under, and they're saying it is now time for people power to prevail inside Uganda.
All those charges are trumped up charges. They're fake charges. But we believe truth will prevail and Bobi Wine will be free and the people of Uganda are going to be free.
The demonstrators marched through major roads in the capital. Their rallying call to the country leadership to not turn a blind eye to the injustices happening in Uganda.
The president of this country, Uhuru Kenyatta, is an embarrassment because he hasn't said anything about it. Yes. The AU leader, Paul Kagame, is the leader of the African Union. He hasn't said a word about it. Yes. Bobi Wine and the Arua 33 are all innocent people.
The group had hoped to get an audience with at least one member of parliament, but were unsuccessful and in frustration threw coins into parliament buildings. They were also not able to deliver their petition to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Nairobi and walked on to Uganda House, which was once the office of Uganda's High Commissioner to Kenya. Thank you very much. Leila Mohammed, NTV, Nairobi, Kenya.
And you can be sure that we will give you the updates on the reactions to this story from our sister station, NTV Uganda, and even other developments from here on this particular story as the push continues to free Bobi Wine. Now, to domestic concerns, and middle-class households in Kenya will continue to pay more for power due to the new billing structure by the Energy Regulatory Commission that took effect this month.
Director General of the Commission, ERC Robert Oimeke, appeared before Parliament's Energy Committee but failed to explain the steep costs that the middle class has to bear.
And those consuming between 11 to 100 electricity units per month have had to pay between 2,219 shillings up from 1,838 shillings that was being charged on 100 units of power.
The new billing structure, however, benefits low-income households who consume about 10 units who have now seen their bills reduced from 278 shillings to 176 shillings a month.
This represents about 3.4 million people. ERC Director General also said the Commission is ready to implement the 16% VAT tax imposed on petroleum products starting the 1st of September unless Treasury suspends its implementation again.
This could see the cost of petrol shoot up to 130 shillings per litre when the tax comes into force. And here's the Director General speaking to Parliament's Energy Committee.
Again extended for a period of 2 years to 2016. Again, the period was extended again. What I'm not aware, Chairman, is whether that is going to be extended. If it's not extended come 1st of September, we as a Commission, we have also an obligation to obey existing laws. So we will implement if there is no change in the current VAT Act or the finance bill that's been prepared by Parliament. So we are still waiting also, but we are prepared. In the event that there's no change, we'll go ahead and do as per the law.
Away from that, a man who survived a crocodile attack last year has today succumbed to his injuries incurred when he was attacked by a hippo.
25-year-old Omar Hamisi was killed by a rogue hippo while on a fishing expedition on Lake Victoria. Oko Kusa has more.
Yeah, the last time we visited this gentleman when he was at Russia Hospital, I still remember, and it is very sad memory. He told us that as a fisherman, the only thing that he is capable of doing is going back into the lake to fish.
And that is exactly what Omar did immediately he was discharged from hospital where he had stayed for 6 months. In the dicey waters, he returned. But this time around, as fate will have it, he did not make it back alive.
Kiboko alikuja akapiga ile boti. Piga boti huyu kijana akaanguka ndani ya maji. Alipoanguka ndani ya maji, hii kiboko ikamshika. Na haswa kweli hata sasa akifunuliwa pale utakuta kama kwamba imevunja mkono, imetoboa kifua, imetoboa kichwa.
His colleague who survived the attack steered the vessel back to Usama Beach and reported the incident. A rescue team was quickly assembled, but it was a little too late to rescue Omar.
Ni muda mrefu sana tumeanza kuhangaika kuanzia asubuhi mpaka saa hizi. Sasa tumempata eneo la hii hapa juu hivi.
Omar's friends were overwhelmed by his tragic death. They mourned him. Residents here claim that they have lost 6 people in the past 1 year to animal attacks.
Kiboko na mamba wanatuhangaisha mno.
Huwezi kuenda kuoga, hatuna raha hata ya kuenda barini, hatuna raha kufanya mambo lolote kwa maana ukienda tu umefika kanyaga na ni wao watu wako hapo na kila siku tunapeleka hiyo kilio na sijui kama watu wanasikia vile wataweza kutusaidia.
On shore, a huge crowd gathered, while inshore, Omar's body laid covered with the water hyacinth weed. Kenya Maritime Authority officials and the Kenya Wildlife Service personnel visited the scene. Oko Kusa, NTV.
To the family and friends of Omar, poleni sana. And what are the chances? Now to another important issue elsewhere. Water CS Simon Chelugui set off the alarm bells this week that rivers flowing from Mount Kenya are on the verge of drying up due to over-abstraction and suspended all abstraction licenses.
NTV's Melita Olatenges went up the mountain on a truth-finding mission and reports on the health and flow of rivers Sagana and Thegu that have been reduced to a trickle due to human activity, including farming.
Actually, on River Sagana, 17 illegal obstruction. And today I've ordered WARMA, those responsible in apportionment and management of resources, to suspend all legal and illegal permits.
The statement by Water Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui stirred ripples of reactions among a number of leaders, the Water Resource Management Authority, and communities for who the rivers flowing out of Mount Kenya are a lifeline. This source of life now threatened by over-abstraction of waters from the rivers deep inside the Mount Kenya forest. On this day, Warma, together with representatives of the River Users Association from the Sagana River, were in a truth-finding mission in the dense and disoriented terrain that is the Mount Kenya forest and the source of life that flows downstream. The findings were shocking. Rivers that were once the waterways of this dense jungle now reduced to trickle. Several tributaries flowing into them have been diverted to different farms. Barely 2 months after the rainy season, the Thegu and Sagana rivers are on their deathbeds as a result of human activity. This is what has flecked the drying of rivers downstream. Where I'm standing right now is supposed to be a tributary joining the larger river Sagana, now filled with rocks and diverted toward the farms for irrigation purposes. We understand that there are several other diversions within this forest. Some of the diversion channels have been built with cement, a clear mark that they have been here for years. The use of this flow tracker indicates that the amount of water diverted is more than what is going downstream.
They have diverted the main Sagana River using furrow into their farms for irrigation. Some are using portable pumps.
Thegu River alone has about 58 licensed water abstractions aside from the illegal ones set up by unknown people that have drastically reduced the water levels. The population has risen along with the demand for water. Locals, however, fault Warma for failing to regulate the issuance of licenses for obstructions and protecting the critical water catchment areas.
Sasa Warma ndio wangekaa chini
na Ministry ya Water wajue ati kwa sababu hii watu population inaenda juu, tutafanya nini?
We have more than 200 pumps pumping water from the river upstream. And pumping at that rate, it's not possible for that water to reach Vego River ward.
But it's not just the obstructions killing the Mount Kenya rivers. This exclusive footage shows several illegal intakes in the springs of the moorlands of Mount Kenya, a major threat to the ecosystem. Locals here hope the revocation of all permits by the Water Cabinet Secretary and the vetting that should follow will regulate the number of illegal intakes that pose a threat to the existence of the Mount Kenya rivers. Milita Oletenges, NTV.
And with that, we'll take a quick break here on NTV Tonight, but we'll be back in a bit with more. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. 6 people died in a road accident at Chauri Moyo along the Malindi-Mombasa highway. 4 of the 6 died on the spot after the 14-seater public service vehicle they were traveling in from Malindi to Mombasa rammed into a stationary lorry. 2 more passengers, including a child, died while receiving treatment at a Kilifi hospital. Kilifi County Police Boss Fred Ochieng said his team was searching for the owner of the lorry, and some witnesses to the early morning accident say the PSV lorry driver was speeding and could have avoided the lorry.
Sasa mimi ndivyo gari ndivopanda nafika ngani nimeketi kule mbele. Na kisa yule dereva akawa yuko yuaenda mbio, mimi kama modi mimi. Nasikia kisunzi mimi na nasikia usingizi, simamisha gari niende nyuma. Kufikia pale njiani kwa mwangu akasimamisha gari. Mimi kaenda nyuma kapisha mswali mwingine akakaa mbele. Ile kusema kweli after hapo nilivyokaa nyuma. Mimi sikuelewa chochote mpaka nashtuka mimi niko kwenye lami.
Police in Lamu have arrested a man who had posted on Facebook photos of him bragging about having sexually molested minors and young girls. William Hanga Mwazombo, who is an employee of Wells Fargo security firm stationed in Lamu, was apprehended following a tip-off from the public.
Detectives have been hunting 23-year-old William Hanga Mwazomba since last week after he started bragging online about his alleged sexual encounters with minors. He was finally arrested at his house in Mpeketoni, Lamu County. Kilifi County Criminal Investigation Officer Said Mwazombo was an employee of Wells Fargo security firm in Lamu.
That individual is right now in the custody of Lamu Police. Is being escorted to our jurisdiction. He will be further escorted to Nairobi for the cybercrime unit to take over the case.
William identifies himself as Baki Hanga on his Facebook profile. He had been posting photographs of children on social media and claiming he has defiled them. One of his more outrageous posts was one where he boldly bragged about abusing a little girl after enticing her with sweets. Another photo is of a Form 2 girl whom he says he will invite to his house, buy her sweets and then defile her. Hanga said in the message that he's not afraid of police. William Hanga will be charged with the offence of child sex tourism. The charge attracts an imprisonment term of not less than 10 years upon conviction. Rozongwe, NTV.
Glad the law finally caught up with him. Wildlife conservationists are opposed to a government's proposal on consumptive utilization of wildlife, saying it will spur a poaching crisis in the country and open doors for wildlife syndicates going after wildlife trophies. And as Zainab Ismail reports, concerns about the potential increase in game and sport hunting have escalated as the task force mandated to look into the proposal begins writing a report on submissions made by various stakeholders on the same.
Kenya boasts of a variety of wild animals, a national heritage that is the backbone of the country's tourism industry. But the focus for the country's wildlife is bleak. Conservationists are worried about a proposal by the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife to allow consumptive utilization of wildlife.
It will cause poaching to escalate because people are going to say it's not fair. If I'm not allowed to eat wildlife, why should I allow some tourists to come and buy nyama in carnivore restaurant? So it's going to have a huge psychological effect on us.
They say such a move would reverse the gains that have been achieved in conservation efforts.
The number one concern that we have is that this is not an issue where a decision should be made at the level of a few experts or a ministry. This is a constitutional issue. This is about our rights as citizens, our ownership of our wildlife. It's ours as all Kenyans. So the decision should not be being made the way it's currently being made by a bunch of people going around the country and holding small stakeholder workshops. I think we are taking a very big gamble on something which is considered our heritage. It's very dear to us.
How do you justify to me working in the field, arresting a fellow Kenyan who has poached a dik-dik or an impala to feed his family, whereas on the other hand, you're allowing people to pay for permits to come and shoot up to 200 buffalo or 200 zebra. For me, it doesn't make sense. I don't think it's fair to Kenyans.
They say another point of concern would be the transfer of zoonotic diseases from wild animals to humans.
Do we have the necessary infrastructure to control Ebola? We use about 100 million because of a scare in Congo. Now, we are actively going to look for this Marburg virus, for these diseases in the forest because of this utilization of wildlife.
The task force chaired by Dr. John Waithaka, launched by CS Najib Balala on March 29th, wrapped up its work in receiving views of the public on the matter on Tuesday. Now it sits to write a report that is expected to advise on the modalities for implementing of wildlife utilization in Kenya. But CS Balala went on record to deflate concerns that the move will only make the poaching problem worse, further denying claims that the introduction of consumptive utilization of wildlife will open up trophy hunting in the country. Previously, consumptive exploitation of wildlife has led to catastrophic declines in wildlife population, forcing the government to place a ban on hunting and dealing in wildlife trophies in 1977. However, landowners have continued to apply pressure on KWS and have been lobbying for it, saying several species had increased beyond the land's carrying capacity. The lingering question now is whether the country is ready to adopt the proposal, maintain the efforts geared towards conservation, improve the tourism industry, and benefit the communities living around wild animals.
A very educative piece there. Mark Masai was asking what consumptive wildlife is.
I believe I have an idea to that piece, but yes, good to watch what will be the recommendations made by that task force, because it has a lot of ramifications.
Definitely it does. We'll keep an eye on the same and keep you updated on the same. Well, we turn our attention to business news, but right after this.
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. I'm Dan Mwangi. Now, have you ever wondered what happens to small farms that are in business with either the national or the county governments if the governments fail to pay? Well, they get auctioned. Data from the Central Bank of Kenya shows that the number of bad loans has increased by 22.17% to 121.4 billion shillings, with the most affected being small businesses, households and manufacturers. This means that more and more people are going under the auctioneer's gavel to recover the bad debts. Auctioneering firm Dalali Traders says the number of properties being auctioned for troubled businesses are going up, with most of these firms accusing both levels of government for failing to pay them. But the interesting thing is, even with the number of auctions increasing, there are no buyers for the auctioned property as Kenyans cite tough economic times. Now get more on this story in tomorrow's Business Daily. Now, bad loans are partly affected by interest rates, and so let's move to that. And how are small and medium-sized enterprises coping with the law capping the rates? Steve Nyabwa, the proprietor of Shine in Sparkles, a car washing and detailing business in Nairobi, has been unable to access the loans he wanted since the law was effected. The ripple effect includes the inability to grow his farm as he would like, or rather would have liked to, as well as limiting his ability to create jobs. Shine in Sparkles, when did you start this business?
We've been in operation from 2016, early 2016.
And what are the terms? How was it for you at the time?
Of course, you have to security, bank statements, fee, just the normal stuff that you would get when you're taking a loan. So it was a secured loan.
And was it troublesome to get all together?
No, it wasn't. I walked into the bank today, and in 7 days I had the money.
When you think about now, when we have the interest rates being capped, you know, what's the difference for you?
We want to expand the business, but it's more difficult now to get an unsecured loan than it was before, because before you would go to a bank and say, okay, fine, listen, I'm having a bit of trouble with this. Can you guys give me an overdraft? Can you guys do this? But now it's more stringent. Like the bank will try and look for the most punitive stuff not to give you the loan. I mean, whatever reason they have, they will not give you the loan.
My assumption is that you'd want to expand the business. Have you gone to a point where you wanted to do that, but you were unable to?
Yes, I have. I mean, yes, I have. Of course, business has seasons. So like for us ourselves, I mean, we had a season where we were really trying to expand the business to get more services, of course, to cushion ourselves against, say, when it's raining and business is not as great as it should be. And I mean, we would walk to a bank and say, listen, this is my history. This is what I've been doing. This is what I've been banking. I'm looking for some money to do X, Y, Z. And of course, the bank would look for the slightest reason, like I told you before, slightest reason not to give you. So they would say, for example, say, you have to give us an asset for double the amount of money of what you want to borrow. Say if I wanted to borrow 2 million, they want me to give them an asset for 4 million, which sometimes as an SME, you actually do not have assets that much.
How many people do you employ?
In total, we have about 15, but a big chunk of them are casuals.
In the estimation that you'd gotten the kind of financing you needed, how many more jobs would you have created?
Initially, I mean, at the onset, I would have been able to create at least 10 new jobs.
Is there any other aspect of your life, be it mortgages or otherwise, that you need to take a loan that would also give you a different aspect of still trying to get financing?
I think other than of course, maybe just trying to get an overdraft for my own personal use. And before the interest rate cap, yes, I did do some asset financing to buy a car. I had a previous loan that was in the previous regime where I mean, my offer letter had, I think, about 23-24%. That is what the loan was being offered to me. So of course, a saving of 9% is huge. It's huge. I mean, from coming from paying, I think, about 200,000 to about 170, 160 is a good saving.
Those are some of the reflections of an entrepreneur who has seen different opportunities open doors for him. And to some extent, it's fairly symbolic of what his business is about, because when you come here, you can have your car washed and wiped. And besides that, you can get some detailing done. But the story of many SMEs such as this one is that you have the interest rate capping, washing and wiping away some of the opportunities that may have been harnessed, and at the same time, it's just because of some of the detailing in the law. The Nairobi Securities Exchange will fully launch the derivatives market next year after it finalizes the pilot testing phase of the second half of this 2018-2019 financial year. The boss says it has seen increased interest from potential issuers seeking to list as they source for alternative funding options, and it will be working to make these new listings possible within the year. NSE has posted a 72% increase in profits in the half year to June, rising to 133.7 million shillings compared to the 77.8 million shillings posted in a similar period last year. Micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, will soon be able to access unsecured business loans from Cooperative Bank as part of a new MSMEs tailored financial solution unveiled by the lender today. Through the new financial solution, the micro, small and medium-sized businesses will access, among other things, loans of up to 300,000 shillings, 300,000 rather, 3 million and 5 shillings respectively, without any collateral, as the bank looks to tap into the sector that makes up to 90% of private enterprises in Kenya. With the passing of the Banking Amendment Act 2016 introducing rate caps, most commercial banks have been avoiding lending to the MSMEs, which are often deemed risky, opting instead for risk-free government securities.
Cooperative Bank has identified the micro, the small and medium enterprises, which we are now calling the MSME, as being one of the most prolific sectors that is growing very fast in this economy. And we believe that with the right support from various industry stakeholders, industry players, and especially the banking sector, this is a sector which is capable of driving and turning around the economy of this country.
More than 200 cotton farmers from the county of Lamu are counting losses after they experienced a total crop failure this season following attacks by pests. The most affected areas of the county are Mpeketoni, Hindi and Bahari, and the farmers blamed their losses on the county government's Department of Agriculture, accusing it of giving them poor quality cotton seed. The county the seeds it gave were good quality and that it is working with the farmers to control the spread of the pests.
Kufikia sasa hata kilo 10 kwa eka 9 sioni hata kama nitapata kilo 5, na hata kama ni kilo 5 nitapata itakuwa ni ile waste ambao imeharibika kabisa. Si grade 1 si grade 2 hata grade ya 10 hakuna.
Sasa tulikuja dawa zaidi ya mara 6 lakini bado tu maua yanaanguka.
The supermarket concept solely for clothes wear is gaining traction in the country, with businesses taking the plunge and opening premises on large floor spaces purely for the sale of garments. Aladdin World of Brands is one such entity, with the export processing zone-based company seeking to widen its reach by having competitive price tags for its products. Its latest foray is the setup of a large exhibition of its clothes at the Southfield Mall in Nairobi's Eastlands, with the sale period running until the end of September.
By the way, this is not a permanent space. We'll actually be doing this through every county. So like now we are doing Southfield Mall here. Last month, a few months back, we actually had 2 Rivers. So we don't know the next spot, but our point is to actually have the Kenyan population actually have a feel of the quality of the product before we can actually have the physical spaces permanently. These are new apparel for 600 bob. And remember now it's first hand. You're the first person to actually wear the product. So I think that's more than enough reason to actually make you buy the apparel, because now you're cutting off the aspect of the skin transmission diseases, because these are new apparel, you're the first owner.
Alcohol manufacturer London Distillers has unveiled the new look Kenya King, one of its flagship products. The company says this rebranding is intended to prepare the product for global export as its sales increase. The company recently upgraded its distillery in Athi River with a capacity to produce triple distilled spirits and related alcohol beverages across the country.
Cocktails, remember, drink responsibly. And also, get something, put something in your stomach, okay? And what animal symbolizes?
I'll just put it in simple English, right?
On that note, we close NTV Business. We are both done. Good night.
Thank you for staying with us. President Uhuru Kenyatta has appealed to leaders across the political divide to embrace his deal with the opposition leader Raila Odinga, reiterating that it plays a big role in strengthening national unity and inclusivity.
He was speaking at State House, Nairobi, during the launch of a memoir by Phoebe Asio. Kevin Mutai with more.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has once again come out strongly to explain his deal with opposition leader Raila Odinga, warning against misinterpretation.
We need to remove and to stop inflicting injury upon ourselves. Work together, as we are doing with my brother Raila here.
President Kenyatta also reiterated the need to recognize the role of women in society, saying that their contribution has led to the transformation of the country. The president challenged women to seek more leadership positions.
I do agree that it still remains for us to keep fighting for the 2/3 gender rule.
Our mothers have been involved in Kenya's history at every stage.
Kiplagat has been awarded the EBS.
The leaders were speaking during an event at State House where the president honored women recognized as trailblazers. The late Margaret Kenyatta, the first female mayor of Nairobi, Nyiva Mwendwa, who was the first female minister, and Ida Odinga were all awarded with the Elder of the Golden Heart.
There are so many people who are dying with a lot of history in their heads, and that is not useful to our coming generations.
Now what remains is the government to ensure that there are proper institutions in place to ensure that the efforts and the role of women in society are recognized. Kevin Mutai, NTV at State House, Nairobi.
A depiction of women and power.
Yes, and that's something that features every Saturday, and we could actually expect some of those who've been awarded on your piece.
We shall go hunting. Across the borders now, Zimbabwe's highest court is expected to issue a ruling tomorrow on a petition in which the country's main opposition group is seeking a nullification of July 30th presidential election won by the incumbent Emerson Mnangagwa.
Meanwhile, get this, U.S. President Donald Trump says that his impeachment would wreck the stock market and the economy because he is doing such a good job.
Zimbabwe's opposition argued in the country's top court that the presidential election results should be thrown out, alleging that only massive doctoring of the vote had kept Emerson Mnangagwa in office. 9 judges led by Chief Justice Luke Malaba before court adjourned after 8 hours of arguments on Wednesday and is expected to issue its ruling Friday. A South African court has postponed a hearing of a homicide case involving former President Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane, until October 26th. Duduzane is also faced with another case involving corruption, which was last month postponed to January 2019. Pope Francis is set to make a first papal visit to Ireland after findings show that the Catholic Church has been implicated in child sex abuse. The Pope is expected to meet with victims of clergy sexual abuse behind closed doors during the visit. The findings indicate that 301 priests are implicated in the abuse. U.S. President Donald Trump says the stock market would crash if he ever got impeached. He said this in an interview with Fox News. This comes after his former lawyer Michael Cohen pleaded guilty of bank fraud and campaign finance violations to silence 2 women who claim to have had extramarital affairs with the president.
Never dull moment with President Donald Trump. Let's get into the sports with Brian Otwal after the break.
Let's have a look at the day's sports news. Welcome, my name is Brian Otwal. Women's only marathon record holder Mary Keitany will be seeking a fourth victory at this year's New York City Marathon, which is set to be held in November. Keitany finished runner-up in the last race last year after winning 3 successive titles in 2014, 2015 and 2016. Last year, she won her 3rd London Marathon title, breaking the women's only marathon record in a blistering time of 2 hours, 17 minutes and a second. Reigning London Marathon champion Vivian Cheruiyot has confirmed her entry and will join defending champion Shalane Flanagan along with reigning Boston Marathon champion Des Linden in a race that features 10 Olympians and 3 World Marathon Majors Series race champions. And World Boxing Council WBC World Female Bantamweight champion Fatuma Zarika is set to defend her title against Mexican Yamilet Mercado on September, and her opponent, who spoke before the bout, wants to extend her own winning streak and strip Zarika of the title. It will be Zarika's 2nd title defense, having outclassed former WBC Bantamweight champion Catherine Fury from Zambia to retain her title in December last year. 33-year-old Zarika now has 29 wins, 12 losses and 2 draws, while her 20-year-old Mexican opponent has 12 wins and 1 loss. Zarika's WBC world title defense will be supported by several undercards that will feature World Boxing Council silver female super lightweight champion Judy Waguthi and middleweight fighter Rayton Okwiri. Mercado is expected in the country 5 days ahead of the most anticipated bout. The chairman of the Kenya Professional Boxing Commission, Hilary Alila, has announced he will not be defending his seat in the forthcoming KPBC elections. KPBC, the body mandated to run professional boxing in Kenya, is set to hold its annual general meeting on Saturday ahead of an election that will see the body elect new officials in the commission. The commission, headed by Alila, held a meeting with over 20 professional boxers where they expressed their success and urged boxers to elect good leaders. And Batian View on the slopes of Mount Kenya will host the 8th round of the KCB Kenya National Autocross Championship in Nanyuki. 19-year-old Hamza Anwar, the son of legendary Asad Anwar, will be leading contender for the 2-wheel drive non-turbo title, while Imran Hakada, Zamir Varji, Junaid Shah and Shaz Ismail will battle it out in the 2-wheel drive turbo class. In the 4-wheel drive turbo class, Rehan Shah will be gunning for victory, although he faces stiff competition from Sahib Omar, veteran driver Romad Grow, Lovyot Singh, Gerald Maina and Jackson Wendeto. Meanwhile, Alfir Khan, Kirit Rajput, Asad Anwar, Shalen Mughal and Imar Hakada will duke it out in the open class.
The younger drivers are getting very quick now. They're getting quicker and quicker. Rehan, myself, Alfir, we're the old guns. But the younger boys, Hamza, the other boys, they're getting very quick.
And Arsenal coach Unai Emery defended his team's tactics as they look to secure their first points of the season against West Ham United on Saturday. Emery has not had an easy start at the Emirates after replacing Arsene Wenger in the summer, and the Spaniard has had to watch his side lose their opening 2 Premier League matches at home to Manchester City and Chelsea.
Choose first match.